Get ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. I'm Scott Rouse. I'm a body language expert and analyst, and I train law enforcement in the military in interrogation and body language. And I created the #1 online body language course, bodylanguagetactics.com, with Greg Hartley. Mark?
I'm Mark Bowden. I'm an expert in human behavior and body language. I help people all over the world to stand out, win trust, gain credibility every time they communicate, including some of the leaders of the G7. Chase.
I'm Chase Hughes. I did 20 years in the U.S. military, wrote the #1 best-selling book on behavior profiling, persuasion, and influence. And nowadays, I teach people how to do those things at an extreme level. Greg?
Greg Hartley. I'm a former Army interrogator, interrogation instructor, resistance to interrogation instructor. I've written 10 books on body language and behavior, put together the #1 body language online course at bodylanguagetactics.com with Scott Rouse. And I spend most of my time on Wall Street or corporate America.
All right, today we're going to talk about Gabby Petito, and she's missing. And by now, I think most everybody knows the story, but we're going to talk about it a little bit. This is going to be part 1 of that, and we'll do part 2 in just a couple of days. So we got together really quickly to put this together because we've gotten a lot of requests for it. So again, we're listening to the panelists, and we're jumping in and putting this out as quick as we can. Greg?
Yeah, so this came originally to me, the actual video link from somebody on a Twitter DM. So thank you for the video link, Sandra. And we'll go look at just the stop and their initial reaction. As Scott said, we'll do more later. This is Brian Laundrie, the boyfriend or fiance of Petito, and I think you'll see a lot of interaction. Chase?
Yeah, so during this traffic stop, there's some great behaviors here that we want to give you some of these key points to look at going further. There's some good baseline things in here, and there are some things that should maybe shape the way that we're going to look at our future analysis that we're going to be diving into really deep this week. Mark?
Yeah, so you might well be new to the behavior panel. Great to see you here. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and that'll help you get alerted as this case goes forward and others that we're interested in as well. So hit the subscribe button, hit the alerts, and we'll see you again.
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Do it.
Here we go.
You want to place your vehicle into park and go ahead and turn it off for me?
Yeah, sure.
No, park?
Oh, it is in park, yeah.
Okay, turn off your engine. Go ahead and set your keys on the dash for me, all right? What's your guys' names?
Gabby.
I'm Brian.
Gabby, Brian? Okay. What's going on? How come you're crying?
I'm sorry, we've just been fighting this morning. Some personal issues.
It was a long day. We were camping yesterday, and camping got the flies and stuff. I'm sorry I hit the bump there.
I was distracting him from driving, I'm sorry.
Can I get you to step out of the vehicle for me, man?
Yeah.
Just hang tight right there. Do you mind if I take your keys and just put them on your hood?
You got it, buddy. I'm so
Thank
sorry.
you. Oh, no, you're fine. I'm going to go ahead and close your door, okay?
All right, Greg, what do you got?
So just to frame this police officer saw them speeding at the entrance to Arches Park. In a 15, he was doing 44, and he bumped the curb. There's no other reason to stop them. It turns out they had an altercation the day before or earlier that day at a place inside Moab. He didn't have any part of that, but he does get witnesses later. The big part here to notice is anytime you're pulled over, this is a great opportunity to see how a person responds in fight or flight. And I have good buddies who are highway patrolmen, and they'll tell me the most common word they hear is sorry. We all say, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I'm sorry. They just listen through that. They really don't care what your excuse is. They're just there to give you a warning or a ticket. But you'll notice that he is showing he's being compliant, he's being responsive. She is taking the lead and saying, look, I did this, I did that, I did this. She's not saying we were not fighting. When you hear fighting, it's going to cue a certain behavior in police officers because domestic violence, and they know patterns and they're behaving to patterns. So we'll see that come up. But pay attention, they're compliant, they're responding, they're doing as they're told. They show heightened fight or flight, which means increased blink rates. It means creating exoskeletons. It means trying to protect all those internal organs we always talk about. Fight or flight is your way to escape or defend yourself. And I'll leave a lot for the rest of you to talk about and move around that. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so perception management comes to mind around this. We have the female there who is a YouTuber. So perception, as we all well know, perception management is an important thing. I think I detect early on in this, both of them have their hands up, very compliant. Immediately, the female turns her head and shows negative emotion on the face directly towards the officer. So he's very clear about showing here is the emotion that I'm displaying to you right now, and yet says I'm not crying. So interesting difference there between what is clearly being shown to the officer, or maybe even happening for her emotionally, and what she says is happening. We've grooming of the hair as she comes out. So again, perception management. Then minimizes her body. That's to be expected in this situation, most likely under stress, under pressure. I want you to clock the jewelry on the hands. That comes up a little bit later in terms of the scratches that the male has on his face, and that there's potentially been some striking going on, and the jewelry has created potentially the scratches there. But then she hides those behind her back. Again, could be minimization, but often when the hands are hidden, there's some sense of anxiety going on there. The male, very compliant, very helpful in this situation. And yet it then moves to being slightly over familiar, the use of the word buddy there. And I believe, though I can't see it happening, but because of the distances going on there and the apology, I believe he throws the keys to the officer and then apologizes for that. I think it can't be seen, but I'm going to construe that from the distance that they have and the apology that goes on. And there's some frames missing from this body camera as to when the keys go on the dash and when the officer would have to lean in and take those keys. So, very compliant. Male, pretty compliant there. Again, good baseline for how he performs under police inquiry. Scott, what do you got on this one?
All right. Yeah, right out of the gate, they're really compliant. And she's got what I call the show face. She sticks that face right out there and shows the emotion, like you were saying, Mark, the emotion she's going through at the time, even though she contradicts that. When the officer comes up, and he does a great job at de-escalating what he thinks is going to be a pretty iffy situation there. We'll talk about that as we go along as well. And as Greg said, this is a great example of baselining someone, getting an idea of how that person acts when they're under this kind of stress. Because hopefully later on we'll see this guy in an interrogation situation. So they're very compliant. And then after Gabby finishes talking, then Brian says, it was a long day. We were camping yesterday, and the camping got flies and stuff. Then, in a classic Hartley, he chaffs and redirects toward why they hit the bump in the road, what happened there. So he totally gets the attention from what's happening in the car, outside the car, to what happened before. A change of let's focus on another time, in other words. Again, when she gets out of the car, she gets out, and as he's leaning forward, she's apologizing again. She starts all over again. And then these are all behaviors that indicate stress and that show that they're worried about what's happening. And maybe it's just me, but this is the behavior you see when somebody's hiding weed or mushrooms or something, when they're really, really nice like that. But at the same time, you see it when like we were talking earlier, and Greg pointed out that if you've done nothing, you'll be just this apologetic and be saying you're sorry all the time, and just full on, hey, here's what's going on. But at the same time, it gives me the feeling they got something in there too. Chase, what do you got?
Hey, one note, when you say chaff and redirect in this case, I don't think it's intentional. I think this is brain going, okay. I don't think it's him intentionally doing it. Yeah.
Okay. Just talking.
Yep.
Yeah, that was going to be the first thing I said. When he's talking about the curb, he genuinely probably doesn't think the fight or the argument or the camping has anything to do with why the police officer's talking to him. I think he may have redirected to what the officer's probably there about, or what he was most worried about. And he nods without an issue to put the keys on the hood. And then when the officer asks if he can pull her out of the vehicle, if she can step out of the vehicle, he nods as well. She doesn't look back at him for confirmation or permission. So he's nodding as well. He's making sure to lean forward so the officer can see his face. And this is what we call hyper-compliant behavior. We train law enforcement. When she steps out, her hands kind of instinctively go behind her back, kind of like she's in trouble. And when she's walking with the officer, her arms are swinging in a relaxed way. There's no reservation or any compression to where like the upper part of the arm kind of stays towards the torso and just the bottom parts swing, which is what we might expect if there was some fear or maybe she's worried about her own safety at this point. So I think what we're seeing is hyper-compliant people. And in the next video, you're going to see a little bit more of her behavior. I think is pretty interesting.
Yeah. And again, that apologizing when the first thing out of her mouth is, "I'm sorry." So a little heads up there. All right, we good?
Yeah.
Sorry, officer.
You want to place your vehicle into park and go ahead and turn it off for me? No, park?
Oh, it is in park, yeah.
Okay, turn off your engine. Go ahead and set your keys on the dash for me, all right? What's your guys' names?
Gabby.
I'm Brian.
Gabby, Brian? Okay. What's going on? How come you're crying?
I'm sorry, we've just been fighting this morning. Some personal issues.
It was a long day. We were camping yesterday, and camping got just out flies and stuff. I'm sorry I hit the bump there.
I was distracting him from driving, I'm sorry.
Can I get you to step out of the vehicle for me, man?
Yeah.
Just hang tight right there. Do you mind if I take your keys and just put them on your hood?
You got it, buddy. I'm so
Thank
sorry.
you. Oh, no, you're fine. I'm going to go ahead and close your door, okay?
Let's move along.
I'm going to go ahead and close your door, okay? Why don't you come over here? SO229, I have the female that was on the passenger seat separated from the male. Keys are on the hood. You want to tell me what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just some days I have really bad OCD, and I was just cleaning and straightening up the back of the van before, and I was apologizing to him and saying, "I'm sorry that I'm so mean," because sometimes I have OCD and sometimes I just get really frustrated. Not like mean towards him. I just like. I guess my vibe is like I hear him be like in a bad mood. And I was just saying, I'm sorry if I'm in a bad mood. I've just been really stressed. I had so much work I was doing on my computer this morning.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to work at an organic juice bar, but I just quit my job.
Okay.
I was a nutritionist. That was my
That's
job.
cool.
And I just quit my job to travel across the country. And I'm trying to start a blog. I just have a lot of stuff. So I've been building my website. So I've just been really stressed, and he doesn't really believe that I could do any of it. So that's kind of been like I don't know. He's like down there. I don't know. We've just been fighting all morning, and he wouldn't let me in the car before. And then
Why wouldn't he let you in the car? Because of your OCD?
He told me I needed to calm down. Yeah, but I'm perfectly calm. I'm calm all the time, and he really stresses me out, and this is a rough morning.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't I sit you down in the back seat of my car? You're not in any trouble, okay? I'm not going to be putting handcuffs on you. You obviously don't have any weapons. I'm going to get you into the air conditioning, let you take a breath, relax a little bit, and then I'll come back and talk to you in a few minutes, okay?
Okay.
All righty.
Chase, what do you got?
You do that again. I'm sorry.
No.
My mic was way over there.
Chase, what do you got?
There's genuine sadness here. And at first, the first time I watched this clip, I immediately jumped on this abdominal covering. Women are more likely to cover their lower abdomen when they're feeling vulnerable, threatened, or insecure. And men will typically cover the groin under the same circumstances. But what I started seeing here is the pattern of being self-conscious about the clothing that she's wearing in the police officer. And she got comfortable and really animated when she's talking about the place where she used to work. And this is a good sign that she doesn't feel that she's in any danger in this moment. And she does not redirect any other conversation to her safety. She explains her situation without couching anything, hiding, concealing any issues that she's having. So she's very straightforward and very honest about what she's doing, trying to start a blog. It's nothing's about how cool she is here. It's all seems pretty genuine, and she seems comfortable being small. She doesn't have to be famous or tell the police officer how many followers she's got on Instagram. She looks back to the van when she's having to go sit in this Tahoe, which is, I think, more of a sign of separation anxiety and not fear, which is one of the reasons they were having an argument in the first place. She's kind of holding her finger there while she's looking back at the van, not out of safety, not out of like, is the boyfriend going to be mad, but I'm going to have to be separated, physically separated from this person. Scott, what do you got?
All right. And going back to the part about how the difference in women and men, Chase and I were doing jury selection this past week, or last week, and we saw the perfect example of someone who was afraid, insecure, and just had no confidence at all with what they were talking about, with, of course, the other side. And we both, as soon as this happened, as soon as this guy goes down and puts his clasped hands like this in front of his groin, we both kind of looked at each other like, ah, here we go. So that was in contrast with the attorney that we were with, who was just the height of confidence. It was a great comparison there. Anyway, her hands on her knees and being bent over like that, this is an emotional stress indicator. She's about worn out, so I'm sure this has been going on for a while, because he references it started yesterday, and I'm sure it's been going on for quite a while. When she says I have really bad OCD, and she grabs her chest. A lot of times people do that when they're talking about something from their heart like that. A lot of times we'll see stress when they touch the suprasternal notch, that little thing right there, that little neck dimple, but that's not what we're seeing here. It's just this. Now, I got to watch, I've been watching videos of her father when he's been on the news and those situations. And somebody asked him about the OCD thing, and he said that he wasn't aware that she had OCD. So I don't know if that's what that situation's about. And from observing him, he seemed like his household may be a bit strict, and it may be one of those situations where it is so strict that she may have developed what she sees as OCD, trying to control her space wherever she is, because she has no control of it when she grew up as she was a child. So when she's gone, she's trying to control anything she can control to give her some power in the world. So I think that's important there as we go through this, to think about that. And I thought it was interesting that she would be bouncing from laughing to crying as she goes through this and explains what's going on. Again, the police officer is doing a fantastic job of de-escalating this and calming her down. His voice is just light, like there's no problem. What's going on? Everything is really cool. And he listens to her. And by the time this part is over, she's fairly calm compared to the way she was when she got out of the car. And all she needed to do was talk. So I'm sure she's been so frustrated and being probably fairly vocal with her boyfriend, with Brian Laundrie, that and he's not listening. But sometimes people just need to be listened to, and that changes the game. And of course, that's what the police officer is doing here in that case, and it works great. When the officer asks, "So what do you do for a living?" Everything changes here. She changes from being this real stressed out thing. She's been open anyway, but her illustrators get a little bit larger, and she's very open about talking. That's when we see the hand clasping. It's not the hand clasping and ringing, which we're going to see on him in a little while, but it's the hand clasping of, this is great. This is something I can control. It's something I'm proud of. And she talks about how she worked at an organic juice place, and she was proud of that and happy for that. Then she talks about creating a blog, and she almost says podcast, but maybe she's not sure she's going to do it. But that's when we see her hands clasping together, and actually when her hands come down, they almost slap her leg like that section is finished. It's not that big a deal, but that happens there, and you may be wondering what that is. So she's clasping her hands when she's talking about things she can control. That's something to remember there in comparison with how we've seen her act so far. Yeah, I think that's it for me. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, so a couple of things. She does get calm, but she gets calm about the emotional issues. She's crying, she's doing this. When she starts to talk about, he told me, calm down. If you really want to pick a fight with a woman, tell her to calm down. That usually works well. If she's already upset and you say, calm down, yeah, that's a brilliant move. Or anyone else. But most women will not take that well, number one. Number two, she talks about these things that are emotional, and she gets flat about the emotion, about the arguing with a boyfriend, about him not having any faith in her. Those are emotional issues. And when she comes up out of that cry, those are hot issues. Chase, I agree with you. Typically women cross, and I call that crossing the primary sex organs, ovaries versus testicles. A woman puts her arm across her torso when she's feeling stressed, where a man puts them in front of him. And we traditionally call that the fig leaf. It's been what it's been called forever. What you're going to notice here, though, is there's a lot of behavior where she feels guilty for something and she tries to make up for it. Or she feels like what she said is not enough and she does try to make up for it. I worked in an organic juice bar. I was a nutritionist. Okay, those might be related, they might not. But there's emotion in her here, and it didn't start yesterday, I have a feeling, Scott. You take volatile personalities who feed on each other, which I have a feeling we're seeing here, and you put them in a small vehicle and drive them across country. It's probably been going on for days, if not longer. And if you can't see that there's volatility here, her saying, I've got OCD, he tracked dirt in the vehicle, I'm trying to clean it up, he gets irritated. He already started the story before. They're giving us facts. There were bugs, and then there was dirt, and then she's talking about bugs and dirt. So we're seeing something was a trigger moment for them, and we'll hear more of that when we get into the full video, but you can see here volatility. I was a platoon sergeant in the Army. I've seen this many, many, many times. People who feed on each other's, whatever you want to call it. This guy calls it anxiety, where there's insecurity and the other person's feeding it and they're causing a problem and you get spun up. Doesn't mean anything about what happened after this. We just know this is about a specific incident. She's open. She moves her body language. And Chase, I agree with you that if this were about her and violence and that kind of thing, she likely would be turning away and paying attention to what he's saying. The anxiety I see about her looking is, what is he going to say? Because we've been fighting. That's what I see. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. So, look, I took a look at a baseline here. She put out a video of their trip. It's called Van Life. And you see the immaculate nature of inside the van, beautifully set up, lifestyle kind of vlog. Fantastic. Take a look at her feet. Her toenails are painted perfectly right now. That's got to be pretty hard to do when you're in van life. So there is a personality here that likes things in a particular manner. She's a YouTuber, and so that's actually, particularly important as well at the same time, that perception management. So it's interesting. We see her, before she starts talking about being a nutritionist, we see her flick the hair back in a grooming gesture, but actually opens up these vulnerable areas of the body. So there is that sense of grooming and vulnerability at the same time. I totally agree, Chase. We see the waistband being moved in order to cover up the belly area. So there's an interesting difference between those two elements, at the same time. Hands to heart before the confession of OCD. And we do see her hands go to her knees as she tries to control her breathing. Absolutely right. That's because she's been going through a heightened emotion. Most people can't deliver a heightened emotion for more than about 10 minutes. The body just can't take that breathing pattern. Okay. So she's trying to regroup her breathing. And yet, if it's accurate that this has been going on for several days, you've got an emotion, which can last for about 10 minutes. You've got a mood, which can go for hours. But when something sustains over many days, we'll often go, well, that might be an affective disorder. Okay. And it's interesting that we're getting this information that the father is knowing nothing of OCD. So are there other disorders going on here? Talking to what Greg's suggesting there is, we may have some personalities jammed in a pressure cooker together, and that is not usually a good thing. The male, as we'll hear about later, has a tactic for that. He has a way of dealing with that he believes works really well. So keep that in mind. He told me I needed to calm down, and I want you to look at her knee and see how it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. So there is some anger or some anxiety around that. I don't know which one, but usually that knee jiggle, that leg jiggle signals a lot of agitation around the idea there. I think that's all I got for you on that one.
Great catch on that knee, Mark. Great catch.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. I'm going to add one thing to the grooming gestures with the hair, Mark. A lot of times people do that to get that heat from them, get off them. You'll see people, women will do that when they have a lot of hair. They'll do that, flip their hair back, get some hair back to help them calm down. She's gotten out of that car. She's been fussing, and I think that's part of that as well. I had that written
It's
down.
Moab in August.
Yeah,
I've never been
sure.
there.
Yeah,
the temperature is 800.
Fits her baseline in the van life as well. You see a lot of grooming in the van life stuff as well. Yeah. Oh, listen, one last thing I want to say about the baseline. You just reminded me. In van life, listen to her voice, way lower, way more considered. There is a moment in van life where she complains about the rainstorm that's coming. You'll hear a very naive, childish voice come out at that point. Under stress and pressure, it seems to me there's some, slight regression, a naivety, and that's probably juvenile is a better word. A more juvenile nature comes out. And I think we're seeing that more juvenile nature come out here under stress and pressure of the police and the emotions going on, which is, not unusual. And again, fits in with her baseline, even for her YouTube work. Sorry, that's all I got on that one.
Excellent. I wish I'd seen that.
I'm going to go ahead and close your door, okay? Why don't you come over here? SO229, I have the female that was on the passenger seat separated from the male. Keys are on the hood. You want to tell me what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just some days I have really bad OCD, and I was just cleaning and straightening up the back of the van before, and I was apologizing to him and saying, I'm sorry that I'm so mean, because sometimes I have OCD and sometimes I just get really frustrated. Not like mean towards him. I just I guess my vibe is like I hear him be like in a bad mood. And I was just saying, I'm sorry if I'm in a bad mood. I've just been really stressed. I had so much work I was doing on my computer this morning.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to work at an all-organic juice bar, but I just quit my job.
Okay.
I was a nutritionist. That was my job.
Cool.
And I just quit my job to travel across the country, and I'm trying to start a blog. Have a lot of stuff. So I've been building my website. So I've just been really stressed, and he doesn't really believe that I could do any of it. So that's kind of been like I don't know. He's like down there. I don't know. We've just been fighting all morning, and he wouldn't let me in the car before. And then
Why wouldn't he let you in the car? Because of your OCD?
He told me I needed to calm down. Yeah, but I'm perfectly calm. I'm calm all the time, and he really stresses me out, and this is a rough morning.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't I sit you down in the back seat of my car? You're not in any trouble, okay? I'm not going to be putting handcuffs on you. You obviously don't have any weapons. I'm going to get you into the air conditioning, let you take a breath, relax a little bit, and then I'll come back and talk to you in a few minutes, okay?
Okay.
All righty. Come on over here. You're not in any trouble right now. So, tell me what's going on.
She just gets worked up sometimes, and I try and really distance myself from her. So, I lock the car and I walk away from her. What happened this morning is that she's trying to start up her own little website blog and everything. So I give her time. And we really had a nice morning, if anything. But she just got worked up because we were trying to get going and get our day going because we want to go like arches before the summer time.
Okay. You want to tell me about those scratches on your face?
She had a cell phone in her hand. That's why I was pushing her away, because she wanted. I locked the keys so I could walk away. I said, let's just take a breather and let's not, go anywhere. Let's just calm down for a minute. She was getting a little worked up, and then she had her phone and was trying to get the keys to her, so I got away. I was just trying to. I know I shouldn't push, but I was just trying to push her away to go. Let's just take a minute, step back, and breathe. And she got me with her phone.
Can I see your hand? Oh, you got a mark right here.
Oh, that's from a wire.
That's from a wire?
Yeah.
You want to tell me about hitting that curb?
hitting the curb was her grabbing the wheel.
She grabbed the wheel?
Yeah. She said, I can't believe we're getting pulled over, and then she grabbed the wheel.
What about the speed? Did she take over the...
No, I
over the pedal on you?
If I was going fast, I'm sorry. No, it's probably just the moment of, I'm still shaking now. The adrenaline, seeing the lights flashing up, and then her gripping the wheel. So if I sped up, I'm sorry about that. Or if I was speeding beforehand, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, it took quite a bit to catch up to you. So,
yeah. I'm sorry about that. We're just going into the park again to get water because we have a 6-gallon water container to fill up. So we're just grabbing water for the hike. Okay. And I was trying to keep everything calm and quiet because there's plans still to go for a hike, but it's good. I'm really sorry about that.
Of course. Do me a favor. You want to go ahead and just take a seat right over here on the curb for me?
And if I was speeding, I'm sorry. I apologize.
You don't have anything in that pocket or anything like that, do you?
Nope.
Just the wallet? All right. And then, do you mind lifting your shirt so I can check the waistband? Turn around for me real quick. Perfect.
Nothing.
I just want to make sure. That's all, man. Go ahead, do me a favor, take a seat, all right?
All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to just run down a list of things. I'm going to tell you something that studies have indicated, at least, and some people will disagree with it, I guarantee you, that ring to index finger is a good indicator of testosterone exposure in the womb and affects how your brain functions and all those kinds of things. Whether it works or not, I will tell you I've paid attention to that when I'm going to altercation in a business meeting or something with someone to look and see where testosterone is patterned in the brain. People who have high testosterone levels or a lot of exposure have higher risk profiles. That's usually the only real advantage to it or disadvantage. So they're more liable to take that altercation a little bit further and that kind of thing. Just take that for what it is. I'll leave that part there. What he does is he's open. Now, he does have fight or flight. You can't miss it. His eyes are a little wider. His breathing's a little increased. But he doesn't create an exoskeleton. He's not afraid enough to do that. He does illustrate with his hands, and there's some hemispheric I'll leave to you, Chase. But he does use his hands when he's talking about positive with one and negative with the other. He's open. He responds to every question. He responds appropriately. He gives more information, which is pretty typical. And if you don't believe that, when you get pulled over by a police officer and they say, can I have your license and registration, what do you typically say? It's not, here they go. It's, well, I was doing this or I was doing that. And they all know that that's BS. You're just trying to give information, trying to make it friendly because our nature is either to attack or to take away that fight or flight. And that's what you see him doing here as well. I'm not going to cover a whole lot here, but I want you to pay attention to his demeanor and him being helpful and him talking about her grabbing the wheel. Now, later when we cover the rest of the story, we'll figure out what actually happened. But here you're seeing that. You're also seeing him here talking about having altercation where he tried to close the door and told her to get away and pushed her off, and he told her to calm down. So their stories are matching. You think that when somebody's trying to hide something, their stories wouldn't match. Now, this stop has nothing to do, as far as we know, with what happened to Ms. Petito. What it does have to do is establishing where they were in this relationship at this point in time, which is a few weeks back. I'll leave it at that and say, Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, I think he does start out to be actually dismissive of this blog that she's starting. When he says the word little before, she's starting a little blog or website. But his behavior is hyper compliant. And when I'm teaching intelligence people for interrogation or recruiting operations, we have a fight, flight, freeze response, but there's a fourth F that we add in there, who's a person who does friend. And that's the person who tries to make friends with the animal that's trying to kill it or the potential threat. And we're seeing that hyper compliance here. And this anxiety is likely from the police situation. The scratches story, when he's talking about the scratches, he doesn't try to disparage her at all. He says, I was trying to distance myself from that. He doesn't say her specifically. He was saying that, which means he's not trying to make her look a certain way at all. And when he says about the phone, he said, she had a phone in her hand, not she hit me with the phone, not she scratched me with the phone. None of the actions that she actually took. He's just trying to say she had a phone in her hand. It was an accident. And he's hyper compliant with the police. His head, and one of the quickest ways to test compliance is to point. So when this police officer points back to the curb, this guy's head jerks so fast back to where the police officer's pointing before he even gives an instruction to look in that direction. So that is a definition of hyper compliance. He's wide open. And I've said hypercompliance about 72 times so far. So I'm going to stop. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. So I will say, Chase, that he is very helpful, and he talks a lot. Like, he's giving a lot of information. And if we just take that as a baseline of how he interacts with a police inquiry, which is in right now, it's interesting that of today's date, it's the 18th of September, I think. Am I right? September? I'm terrible with days, months, and everything, left and right. So 18th of September, as of today, this particular male has disappeared or is not available and can't be found. So, and will not talk to the police. So that's a very different way to be than he is in this. If you take this as his baseline, today his baseline is one of ghosting, essentially, disappeared, gone into the ether. So that's kind of interesting. His illustrators are really good. You know, Lock the Car. He does the graphic illustrator for that. He points his finger on distance myself from her. And I believe that pointing of the finger is to say, and that's the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to distance myself from her. I think actually, truly, that is a very, very good tactic on the whole. If you are ever in a situation where you feel that you could get wound up in other people's emotions or your own, you're feeling yourself getting hot, you're feeling yourself getting angry, upset, anxious, one of the best things you can do is just walk away, move away. Go somewhere else. On the whole, it's one of the best bets for de-escalation is not being there. And so I agree with his de-escalation around that, though it seems like sometimes he moves it into isolating himself. Well, that's something very, very different. You know, isolation over time is different from distancing yourself over a shorter amount of time. That's kind of interesting to know. Yes, we see his hands shaking before he said, hey, my hands are shaking. So that's really useful. We see him do the push gesture. I pushed her away. So again, good illustrator. However, looking a little bit into this, the altercation that he's talking about, which was witnessed, the witness says that he pushed her face or grabbed her face. Now that's pushing like that is very different from up here. Okay, so, but I don't know whether that's true or not, you know, how accurate that witness is. But if that is true, there's a big difference between what he's saying and what somebody's saying is going on. And it's always, as a general rule, pretty bad idea to go and touch other people's faces. Scott, what do you got?
We're not seeing any regulators here, so he feels free to talk again. The police officers are doing a great job at de-escalating this and finding out what's going on. The officer's tone's a little bit stronger with this guy than it is with her, because this is a guy, and he's going to put up a much better fight than she could, or if he was going to start something. Seeing tons of illustrators, a lot of illustrators here, and that's cool. But they continue, when he's finished, they go down to his sides again. This, and Greg and I talked about this before as well, looks like he may have been involved somehow with law enforcement before. It could be just that he's doing that because, it looks innocent, but he's doing a lot of things that say he's being so nice, and he's saying all of the right things that sort of tip you off. Maybe this guy's has been pulled over a lot, maybe, I guess you'd say, in that case.
Nothing wrong with that.
Do what?
Nothing wrong with that.
Oh, yeah. So, we're seeing a lot of hand wringing, again, showing stress, trying to get rid of that built-up stress and tension. Those are his adapters. Then he explains he doesn't realize he was speeding. And then again, maybe guys are right. Maybe he redirects because he's just wants to talk about something. So he starts talking about that 6-gallon water container. So that's, which is fairly common. You're right. When somebody's nervous like that, they'll end up saying those types of things. What else have I got here? And in comparison, he's really calm compared to her. Emotionally, he's calm, whereas emotionally she was a little bit out of control over there. And with her mental state after being in a fuss, if they were fussing all the way through there, that's understandable. Now, I think he locked the car because he's afraid she's going to leave him out there in the desert. So I believe that's why he took the keys and said, let's go out. Let's just leave everything here and we'll go out and do the hike or whatever. I think that's one of the situations we're dealing here, because maybe they fuss a lot. And when they do, maybe she goes hard one direction and he's like, I can't chance being left out here in the desert like this. So that's a possibility. That's what it reminds me of anyway. I think we're seeing confidence in this guy and taking what you guys, all of you have said into consideration about this. I think we're seeing confidence in this guy because he knows this isn't his fault and he didn't do it. And he probably loves her. Maybe he loves her. And that's why he's being like, as Chase was saying before, he's not disparaging her, not saying anything bad. And I think his confidence comes from having not started it and I think everything we're hearing them say actually happened. I think they're both being honest about what happened. I'm not seeing deception here anywhere. I don't see anybody trying to hide anything. I don't see anybody running from anything. So I think we're seeing them being honest about the fuss they were having, and that's obviously why they got pulled over. And I don't think this guy's a psychopath. We're seeing nothing in there at this point that says that he would be or shows any behavior like that whatsoever. So, all right, we good?
Yeah.
Come on over here. You're not in any trouble right now. So, tell me what's going on.
She just gets worked up sometimes, and I try and really distance myself from her. So, like, I lock the car and I walk away from her. What happened this morning is that she's trying to start up like her own little website blog and everything. So I give her time. And we really had a nice morning, if anything, but she just got worked up because we were trying to get going and get our day going because we want to go like arches before this stuff.
Okay. You want to tell me about those scratches on your face?
She had a cell phone in her hand. That's why I was pushing her away, because she wanted I locked the keys so I could walk away. I said, let's just take a breather and let's not go anywhere. Let's just calm down for a minute. She was getting a little worked up, and then she had her phone and was trying to get the keys to me, so I got away. I was just trying to. I know I shouldn't push, but I was just trying to push her away to go. Let's just take a minute, step back, and breathe. And she got me with her phone.
Can I see your hand? Oh, you got a mark right here.
Oh, that's from a wire.
That's from a wire?
Yeah.
You want to tell me about hitting that curb?
Hitting the curb was her grabbing the wheel.
She grabbed the wheel?
Yeah. She said, I can't believe we're getting pulled over, and then she grabbed the wheel.
What about the speed? Did she take over the pedal on you?
If I was going fast, I'm sorry. No, it's probably just the moment of, like, I'm still shaking now. The adrenaline, seeing the lights flashing up, and then her gripping the wheel. So if I sped up, I'm sorry about that. Or if I was speeding beforehand, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, it took quite a bit to catch up to you. So,
yeah. I'm sorry about that. We're just going into the park again to get water because we have a 6-gallon water container to fill up. So we're just grabbing water for the hike. Okay. And I was trying to keep everything calm and quiet because there's plans still to go for a hike, but it's good. I'm sorry about that.
Of course. Do me a favor. You want to go ahead and just take a seat right over here on the curb for me?
And if I was speeding, I'm sorry. I'll apologize.
You don't have anything in my pocket or anything like that, do you?
Nope.
Just the wallet? All right. And then, do you mind lifting your shirt so I can check your waistband? I got turn around for me real quick. Perfect.
Nothing.
I just want to make sure. That's all, man. Go ahead, do me a favor, take a seat. All righty.
So let's throw around and very quickly, let's say what we think's going on. We'll go with Mark, Chase, and Greg, then back to me. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so it's a pretty honest exchange going on here. The main issue for me is, even though all of us would be, relatively compliant under this situation, taking that as a baseline for him, of course, I wonder, just like everybody else, why so quiet now? Why so less visible right now? Why not just talk to the police with a lawyer right now if there's no issue? Why not be, just as there was no issue back then, if there's no issue right now, why not just repeat the behavior that we saw back there? Because that behavior that we saw back there all looks fine. I think we see, and we'll explore this more, two personalities that could get themselves into trouble in a pressure cooker of a van, absolutely. And if there's no issue, talk to the police with a lawyer. Should be no problems with that. Chase, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, totally agree. And this whole, I need to get away from this and isolate myself seems to be an MO and a repeating theme. And I'm hopeful very hopeful in the next couple of days he'll come forward and at least say something to the effect of, this is the last time I saw her and I don't know anything else, even if it's just that, that would speak volumes. I do think, and you guys would probably agree, that in an interrogation room by himself, he could be led to just about anything in a very quick succession. So I think if that's the concern, he has an attorney for that. Or just call in a tip to the tip line if you don't want to speak to the police. So hopefully something happens soon. And it's possible that he just left and he knows already that she's just fine. So he's not saying anything at all. And he's totally confident that she's just fine. So we have multiple outcomes here. We are going to be digging into this week and getting back to you on this for sure. Greg?
Yeah, remember, this is just a traffic stop after an altercation. They happen to have had something going on inside the van. Doesn't mean we know anything. What I will tell you is these are relative kids. These are 22, 23-year-olds. All of us, as we age, get better and better, ideally, at dealing with relationships. The most complex relationship in our life is the romantic one, whatever it is. And it's the only one we don't approach with a contract that says, here's my entitlement, here's my expectations. We have unspoken expectations. A person who might expect that everything's really tidy and is living in a van with a person who doesn't see that creates all kinds of things. People feed off each other's negative energy and things can get really out of hand. And I think you both hit on it, dead on it. This guy's style may be to back away from any kind of conflict, and that's the reason he's not responding. Let's hope it didn't escalate further. I've had many, many, many soldiers who work for me who had this relationship exactly, and I would say get out of that relationship. Is not going to end well for you because you just keep feeding on each other. Now imagine cramming into a very tight space and then going cross country, and now you're losing all those other inputs. And then when somebody says to you, remember, I always say, you're not who you are, you're who other people think you are. And if people say to you, you're never going to have a blog, or you're never going to do this, or you're never going to do that, then you start to lose that, then something else happens. Lots of bad things can happen, especially when there's no spoken entitlement or expectation. And so here we are. I would just say, let's hope for the best. I don't expect to see the best coming out of this, but then I'm just jaundiced and it's my nature. He is very compliant. And Chase, to your point, this guy could be led from an unscrupulous interrogator into a confession like that. You can see it because he's so compliant. Scott, what do you got?
All right, there's something else that's been added to this, or it's been brought in, is our two people who were together, two women who've been killed as well out in that area. I don't think that's what we're looking at here. I don't think that's,
they said it's not related.
Oh, they did say that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't seen that yet. Okay, great. Because I was going to say, I don't believe that he's part of that at all. So I think that's what we're seeing is the two personalities that are butting heads, and it doesn't seem very dangerous at the time. The police officers weren't alarmed about it, and then they didn't have the body language that said either one of them was alarmed about it. No. So we'll see what happens. I guess I'm not like all of us. We're not sure what happened, and everybody has their own thing to say about it. All right, be good.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Listen, subscribe. Follow what we're doing. Be great to see you here each week, and as this progresses, we hope in a really positive way. So see you again soon.
Yeah, if you like what we're doing, be sure and subscribe. All right, this is a good one, fellas. We'll see you in a couple of days.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Michelle, no van a ser, no,